we are a logistics company. We do top to bottom logistics. And that is like, our number one specialty is managing logistics. And it's a lot, and adding a live broadcast on top of that and dealing with all of the rights that go into it and the publishing and the music side and all the things that some people might not know exist. There's a lot of back end to get all of that cleared to be able to put that, out in a broadcast format. So now we've been forced to stop, take a breath, figure this piece out. And now when we go back, we'll be able to marry the two together and hopefully have a much bigger presence globally. So in some ways, this has been a great opportunity to expand our business in the future when we never had a chance to just take a minute to do it before.
Hey everybody, welcome to yet another episode of EventSpeak with me, Big John, CEO of Beyond Experiential. As everybody knows full well at this point, we're an interview show, and we talk to folks across the entire event ecosystem in every capacity. And as anybody that knows me knows, I come from the music business, the music background. It's my passion, and it is where I find many of my dearest friends and folks that we're lucky enough to work together. Today's guest is no exception to that rule. Her and I go back a very long time. We lived on tour together and made great decisions and terrible decisions all together at the same time throughout the years, personally and professionally, and I'm really excited to welcome her to the show. Her name is Maureen Valker Barlow. She's the Senior VP of Brand Alliances at Danny Wimmer Presents, and we're thrilled to have her today. So Maureen, welcome to the show.
Thanks, John. Thanks for having me. It's good to be here.
It's so good to see you. It seems like it's been forever. I know we were talking a little bit off camera here before we started recording, but it's interesting now more than ever. I think you'll agree in this crazy time. It's just feels so good to reconnect with people, and it helps you kind of just remember how grateful we are to have had such a journey that has led us to today, where fortunately both of us are still managing to keep ourselves busy and creating value in what we do.
Yeah, very much so. I think I can count on your friends I've seen in person during these times, but on the complete opposite spectrum of that, the amount of Zoom calls that I've had with absolute complete strangers that I may have never have met in person in all of my pitches and all of the business that we're doing has, multiplied to the umpteenth percent. So
100%.
It is interesting times, no doubt.
well, it's interesting. I've said this 1,000 times, but like there have been silver linings to this. And as you just said, like doing what we're doing now, we're all doing that 400% more than we ever did in the past. And it gives you this epistemic reach to talk to so many more people and to interact with so many more people and to expand internationally and to just, it's limitless. And it's always been there, right? But, prior to the pandemic, I think we were all just kind of almost taking for granted the fact that these festivals and concerts and things that have been thriving and paving the way for all of us for years were just always going to be there. And that, oh, by the way, we better, what if there's a pandemic this year? Who says that? Nobody does. Because
nobody had pandemic insurance.
Actually, that's not true. And I'm excited to share this story with you. I don't know if you know Lucas Keller, Milk and Honey, but Lucas is an old friend of mine. And I had Lucas on the show a few months ago, and he told me this little interesting tidbit. But evidently Wimbledon, the famous, tennis event 20 years ago took out pandemic insurance and paid somewhere to the tune of like 15 mil a year plus. And somehow that never got hacked off in a line item budget meeting. It stayed. And when this pandemic hit, they got a 9-figure check.
Wow, that's incredible. Like, a lesson for us all, right? A lesson for us all.
A lesson for us all. Now, Maureen, let's talk a little bit about what you do at Danny Wimmer Presents. I mean, obviously, everybody mostly knows what Danny Wimmer is, but tell us a little bit about what you do there, and you know, what folks should know about what Danny's doing.
Yeah. So I head up the partnerships team and the partnerships department. You know, we were very, very busy and on track to have the biggest year in our history for 2020. And the sponsorship department was on track to have a huge year as well. So as an entire company, we were firing on all cylinders, and it was, you know, we had really high hopes. Metallica was set to headline all of our shows. Luckily, so far, we've just announced our first show for 2021, and we've been able to have a repeat lineup with our headliner. So Metallica and My Chem are on board for next year, which is great. But yeah, our business was doing very, very well. I'm actually fairly new to the Danny Wimmer team. I just had my 1-year anniversary. Was at another promoter prior to this. But I head up the partnerships department and oversee all of our on-site festival activations, work with existing partners, seek out new partners, and really try to do the storytelling for them that they're doing in their day-to-day marketing campaigns and bring that to life on site. In addition to the festival business that we have, we also have an agency inside of DWP, and that's really come out of working in sponsorship for so many years. Year over year, we've developed such close relationships with all of the managers and artists that we've started to represent them on an individual level. So we seek out partnerships, endorsements, licensing deals, whatever might be on the docket, tour sponsorships when that comes back online, and help find that for artists on a one-on-one level outside of the work we're doing. Like we're already working with Jack Daniels at all of our shows. So is there an opportunity for when Black Veil Brides goes on the road to have Jack Daniels work with that band directly? So we help facilitate a lot of that. We also represent other festivals, work with, we actually are working on a K-pop festival right now that was slated to come to the US, the first K-pop festival in the US. It'll be here in 2021. We also work on the Ohana Festival in partnership with Live Nation. And yeah, we recently signed BMG and their roster of talent, and we work with Shelter Music as well. So we're busy. We're busy. We're keeping it busy. We've been able to pivot and keep afloat over here.
Now, I'm sure that you know, from what you're telling me, it's such a I think a crucial relationship that exists now more and more than ever before, as we see brands and bands. What was once non-conventional revenue streams is now conventional. It's the now. It's exposure services for the artists and also the brands. And the fact that you guys are able to kind of sit in the middle of that, I think is so important to what's going on in the world. Now, as I'm sure many people that are watching and a lot of folks that are you know, all kind of scratching our head to be like, what does 2021 look like? Because we clearly know that 2020 is we're done. I mean, we've been done for a while. But yeah, as you know, as we're hoping to get on the other side of this pandemic eventually, we're hoping to see a widely distributed vaccine, et cetera. Do you guys feel confident that what you have booked for 2021 is going to stay on schedule? And if so, are we going to see what we would expect from a typical Danny Wimmer's event where you've got, you know, thousands of people at a festival? Are these going to be scaled back? And, you know, with, of course, all the PPE and social distancing and masks and mandates that have to be in place even once the pandemic is under control?
So it's an interesting question. So we are planning for our events in 2021, and we are crossing our eyes, toes, legs, all of it, hearts, to hope and pray that they happen. for the artists, for our coworkers, for our contractors, and for the fans, obviously. But, we still don't know. There's a lot of unknowns. So can I say with 100% confidence that yes, they will be here next year? I cannot, and I cannot speak for DWP in that either.
Sure.
And, what I can say is that we are planning for them to happen, and we will make the changes based on what the realities and the information that we have is at the time and in 6 months from now. We're obviously, still waiting to find out who our next president is going to be. We don't even have an answer, and we're 48 hours after the election. So I think, there's still a lot of unknowns. But to touch on what you just said, I mean, what we do know is we're going to have to plan, and we're going to have to plan on keeping people safe and having all of the elements that are required to keep people comfortable and feel like they can come out and be safe and still have a really good time, Unfortunately, there's not going to be some, added revenue stream to make up for any of that, right? Like, we're probably adding on a lot more expense on our side in terms of PPE and sanitation and hand sanitizers everywhere and temperature checks and testing and all of that really isn't probably going to get added onto a ticket price because it's just not feasible right now. So we are going to take those added expenses on because we know we have to. One thing that we've done to pivot in 2020 is we've really gotten into the pay-per-view business. And we have 2 under our belt. One, we partnered with 5B, and we did Corey Taylor from Slipknot, and we did his on October 2nd. And just this last Friday, on October 30th, we did Pucifer Maynard. We did his pay-per-view. And I think that those types of shows are here to stay. And in 2021, 2022 and beyond, that's something that we will also have to add to our business plan, because while a lot of people are going to be clawing at the walls and wanting to get out and ready to go back to shows and ready to go out with their friends again, there's going to be a lot of people that are just wanting to stay home and feel safe. And there's so much digestible entertainment and media now digitally. There was before, now there's even more. They're going to say, no, I'm just going to have a few friends over and I'm just going to buy the pay-per-view version of the festival, and I'm going to watch it in the comfort of my home. So I think there's going to be a big change in that side too, where we're going to, we'll be getting 2 bites of the apple. There'll also be a lot more work once events come back online.
100%. I absolutely think there's a similarity with the brand marketing business and what you're talking about. Is everyone's talking, everything's pushing digital right now. But come when we are able to have events again, I think that it's important to recognize, while I think it's going to be a familiar landscape, it's going to be a very different landscape. And that people, as you said, I'm hearing figures in the tune of like 15% we may not see come back for a long time, just out of fear of what's going on out there, and they still want to be entertained. So I think it's important, especially for folks like yourselves and what you guys do, that has to be kept in mind as you're pitching new business going into 2021, 2022, and delivering those digital performances. And I think that's also something that we've seen the technology grow leaps and bounds this year, because it's had to on the spot. We've seen so many artists do so much more online and make it available to people, which can reach so many new fans, so many new consumers. You see these platforms coming out where, where these companies are building these digital platforms and helping bands monetize them and link them with brands and partners. And I think that this is another silver lining to everything we have going on right now, is that, let's be honest, it's the gravy train of the concert business and live event business that's been going for so long. The fact that this happened, and it was so unprecedentedly, where no one could have, known it was going to happen, have now been forced to reinvent ourselves, as we were talking about. And that's a good thing, because I feel like now when we come out of this, we're going to see how digital handshakes with physical events.
Definitely.
We're going to, with it from the digital capacity, I would think that you could work with artists from all over the world. You could have them on the same bill digitally, wherever they're at,
Yeah.
and as long as people have this exclusive access to that content, that's something that I would imagine as a music fan, they're going to be all about. And I think it's really great that you guys are doing it in a way that's also involving brands and involving, everyone else that's trying to continue to push forward that were once part of that live event culture. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah. And you raise a really good point, because there's always opportunity in crisis, right? And we have fans, we work with some of the biggest fans on the planet who have fans all over the world. And we've always talked about doing pay-per-views or broadcasts or whatever it is after the fact to, make sure that we reach more people than the ones that are just on site. And the logistics and the business that goes into that, we're always running 100 million miles an hour, and we haven't had a chance to stop and slow down and think about how all of those pieces might work, right? Like it's a lot to take on when you're planning an event. So I always like to compare what we do to UPS. We're like no different than FedEx or UPS. We are a logistics company. We do top to bottom logistics. And that is like our number one specialty is managing logistics. And it's a lot, and adding a live broadcast on top of that and dealing with all of the rights that go into it and the publishing and the music side and all the things that some people might not know exist. There's a lot of back end to get all of that cleared to be able to put that, out in a broadcast format. So now we've been forced to stop, take a breath, figure this piece out. And now when we go back, we'll be able to marry the two together and hopefully have a much bigger presence globally. So in some ways, this has been a great opportunity to expand our business in the future when we never had a chance to just take a minute to do it before.
Oh, well said. I think that's a common thread amongst many businesses that are centered around events. Obviously, especially with what you guys do, because you're right, while you're prior to the pandemic and it comes up in planning, and that you need to put a bigger presence on digital, and how can we tap into pay-per-view, how can we reach a bigger audience and not have it all solely based on physical events happening in one specific place in the world. And now coming out of this and rubbing the crystal ball and looking down the road a couple of years, you got to believe that you guys are going to be able to really fine tune it and almost sort of reinvent the whole concert experience.
Definitely.
It's no longer just something that, of course, I think we're going to see record numbers when that time comes, and people can actually go out to shows again and actually feel like that's available to them now. And obviously with how sad it is with so many independent venues closing and things that are happening for the semi-nationals and the smaller bands that are going to be really forced to, like, what do we do now? Because yes, the Metallicas and the big artists and some of them they mentioned, there's always going to be a stage. There's always going to be a place for them, because those are your marquee ticket selling bands. But it's really a very, I think it's a scary time for a lot of the other bands that are going to have probably half as many venues that they once did to perform at, and have to be kind of forced to reinvent themselves of what comes next. And I think that's something that is going to be figured out on the fly, if you will, because it seems.
But then again, there are the outlets like the Veeps and the Maestros of the world that are, like you said, giving artists an outlet to make money from the comfort of their homes, right? Touring is very expensive. Touring is exhausting. So if you can find a way, if you have a fan base and you use Spotify and you've used all the digital service providers to get your music out there, you can still touch and talk to fans through platforms like Twitch, obviously YouTube and everything else that's out there, and still find another way to be connected.
Absolutely. In fact, I think there are some things that, like with State to State, the band I manage, that we've seen where when you are putting a big focus on your digital presence and that mode of exposure, it can all be tied into driving traffic to your Spotify, your streaming DSP platforms. It's learning, how to take advantage of those opportunities and get, more organic engagements, get more organic streams, to really have a more, I know for us, we've put a lot of time and money into that this year, because what else you've got to do right now, because you can't play out and be a band. And I feel that when you add any amount of getting back to play out again, when that comes to that time, if bands continue to put a focus on that digital side as much as they are on the side when they're able to get back out on the road, that's only going to better them and give them that much more of an opportunity. So now, all business aside, I know, like myself, you guys like to cook. You guys like to do those sort of things. We're foodies. You and your wonderful husband, Chris. So tell me, when you're not going crazy working with Danny and doing what you do, what have you been cooking? What have you been eating? What's been getting you guys through this time to keep you both sane and have a little bit of fun at the same time?
Yeah, we've definitely been cooking a lot at home. Chris does a lot of the cooking, which is very, very nice. We're cooking everything. Let's see, last night we had sausage and peppers.
Ooh,
on Sunday I made my first beef stew, because it was a Halloween weekend, right? Getting into the fall here. I will say I've never watched as much television as I have this year in my entire life. Started, especially Netflix, right? I never had time before, if I wasn't working at my desk, I was on the road or in a meeting or flying somewhere or going somewhere else. Now, even if I still am working a 10-hour day, I still have a couple hours at night where I just want to turn off. And I like to call it Doritos for my mind, and watch something. So I never got into Stranger Things, and I'm currently on season 3. And
great show.
That shit is scary. That shit is scary.
That is such a great, the Duffer Brothers do such a phenomenal job with that show. It's because, to me, I know we kind of the same generation, that, those 1980s Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday the 13th, all that kind of vibe, from the music to the way they shoot it. Absolutely.
I'm an 80s baby, so early 80s baby. So yes, it totally speaks to me. We tried to watch it, pre-pandemic, and couldn't get into it. Same thing with Schitt's Creek. Watched 2 episodes, couldn't get into it. Now it's the pandemic. Everybody's saying you have to watch this show. We gave it another shot, and we're like, oh my gosh, this is Daniel Levy was incredible. That entire show was so well written, and I was like, why didn't we ever like this before? Well, probably never had time, because my mind had never shut off and never just had time to kind of be a couch potato. So,
and I think you'll agree, not to interrupt you, I think that's important. I think, I totally get it. When the sun is shining, you make the hay, and you get in that mode, and you're go, that even when you're not working, you're still working. And I think that it's important to turn it off sometimes and to remind ourselves why we work, and the things that, that it's good to, veg out in front of the TV a bit. It's good to dive into a TV show and just turn your phone off. It's something that I don't think nearly enough of us do. And the pandemic has forced us to do that. And it makes us better. We're that much sharper and that much better when we're getting back into it. But Maureen, I can't tell you what a pleasure it's been to talk with you again. And you and I have come a long way together. I miss you too. And I really hope that our paths get a chance to physically cross sooner than later. And please, by all means, send my very best to Chris. And I just couldn't be happier for you. And at the risk of sounding condescending, I'm so incredibly proud of you. You've come a long way from being in catering at the Warped Tour back in the day as we first met. And I wish you all the best. And please send my love to all those folks at Danny that I know. And for all of you out there that are watching and say, well, hey, I'd like to talk with Maureen, or I have an opportunity that might be right for one of their properties. And you can find Maureen at Maureen at dwpresents.com. And of course, on EventSpeak here with me and everybody else. So thank you, Maureen, for coming by the show. And thank you to all of you for tuning in and making all of this possible. And this is me, Big John, signing off and reminding each of you to take care of yourselves and each other.